everything shifted on the first indictment of Trump, March 30th. So again, a month and a half after this moment in the polls. And Trump is formally indicted for falsifying business records going back years, right? Going back to before he was president. By April 10th, what is that? 20 days later, he was up by 30 points in those same polls. Once they indicted Trump, I think it was the state of New York. Once that happened, it was like a groundswell of Republican voters, and people who were prepared to ditch Trump came in to rally to his defense. And suddenly, again, 8-point lead becomes 30 points. Trump never looked back after that.
Shouldn't it work the opposite way?
You would think. And that's what the media was saying. The media was saying, look, now he's been accused of felonies, very serious crimes. He could face prison time. But Trump's brand had been from day one, I'm the victim. They're out to get me. They're out to get me. So all that did was light a fire under the Republican voters to say, maybe they are out to get him. That was sort of the psychology, right? So it was a bit like a country who's attacked unifies around the leadership. And I think that's really what happened in the Republican Party. I mean, how else can you explain 8-point race becoming a 30-point race, and overnight he became the favorite again? He never looked back. Never after that did he dip below a 25-point lead in the polls. It was a unbelievable turn of events. Shortly after then, CNN, inexplicably to me, as somebody who's been following politics, brings him back on. So CNN had tried for most of Biden's presidency up to that point to keep Trump out of the limelight, not highlight him, not promote him. Then they bring him on for a town hall and put him in front of a totally pro-Trump crowd. I think this was in April of that year. And Trump looks strong in front of a cheering crowd, in front of all, his supporters. And suddenly the race turned 100%. And he's the favorite again.
I thought CNN is a very pro-democratic channel.
I mean, they tend to be. They tend to be, not a fan of Trump. But whether that was a mistake, whether that was for ratings, whatever it is, I'm sure it got good ratings. But that combination of events, particularly the indictment, Trump suddenly becomes the favorite overnight all over again. It was like the Republican Party fell in love with him all over again. It was unbelievable. So then what happens? You get 3 more indictments. So June 8th, he gets indicted for mishandling classified documents. This is all 2023. August 1st, he gets indicted for attempting to overturn the 2020 election. August 14th, he gets indicted for attempting to overturn the Georgia election in 2020. And now you can
Georgia as a state or
yes.
Georgia as a country?
Georgia, no, definitely not the country. Not the country, the state. So think about this now. So that first indictment was rocket fuel for Trump support. Now you've got all these other cases coming out, and now suddenly the Trump people are saying, look at this. It's obvious you're targeting him. It only furthered his brand. And from there, he never looked back.
My first thought about this, he creates it himself.
You can make that argument. You can. Sure. You can make that argument. And nobody's saying he didn't, by the way. Trump, I think if you analyze his phenomenon politically, it's, he might say things, he might do something that, again, really impresses and really, garners a lot of support. And yet he's got a tremendous penchant for stepping in his own, his own mistakes, right? Like he'll make the mistake, he'll work his way out of it, and a lot of self-inflicted wounds, definitely.
Okay.
Again, he didn't have to call for the rally on January 6th, but it happened, it hurt his support. And then suddenly he gets indicted, and then he becomes, again.
Yeah, I understand it's like way too risky, but like if you think, like in the conspiracy, in the conspiracy mode, like thinking that all the politicians like they tend to play with the game, like I think like the obvious thought is like, okay, he concocted this himself. But
which part is that? Getting indicted?
Yeah, like all these like four different cases, like he could just I don't know, like
these were all elected and appointed Democrat judges who had filed these cases.
That doesn't fit the theory.
I was going to say, I think that would be one of the most controversial theories. I've never heard that one before. I have to admit, did Trump somehow convince people to? Yeah, so outlandish theory, but look, all theories are respected, but I think quite fanciful, if you ask me. But yeah, look, so that was the background. That's everything that happened from 2020 through 2023 in the lead up to now the Republican primary. Then it gets much simpler after that. So again, Trump was looking weak early 2023. All of this happens, all the indictments, etc. Trump goes on to win 49 out of 50 states in the Republican primary, the biggest win in an open primary in Republican Party history. So an open primary means the incumbent sitting president is not running, even though Trump is in some ways an incumbent, but not from that cycle, right? Won 49 out of 50 states, lost one state, Vermont, only by 4 points. So it was a huge victory. Now, the Democrats during that period of time did not have a primary. So a lot of people were wondering, because Biden had become pretty unpopular by then. He was definitely had signs of aging. There was a lot of things going around the internet. I mean, we would talk about it,
yes,
in the office, going out. Like
very like, I think he became more like comic guy from the internet, with all his like trying to shake hands to Invisible Man and all of this.
Tripping upstairs. We saw a lot of these things. Couldn't find his way off the podium, a couple of times.
Yeah, calling America in one word.
Yeah, whatever he was trying to say with that, nobody really knew. But that was the funny part, was the whole world knew that. And yet, for whatever reason, nobody formally challenged him. There was one challenger, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So this is somebody who's now since endorsed Trump. A Democrat, the nephew of John F. Kennedy, JFK. He announced a run, but the Democrats did not hold open primaries. So again, Biden was ushered in and he was the candidate. And what was interesting was, starting in November of 2023, right before the votes started coming in for the primary, Trump never trailed in the polling average. So the polling average that I cite is sort of my preferred metric. So it's the Real Clear Politics, which takes an average of all the polls and then produces an output. Never trailed in the average of polls in the national vote. And if you compare that to 2016, this was unbelievable, because Trump never led in the 2020 polls, never led in the national race. He only led in 2016 4 days, the entire race against Hillary, consistently trailing nationally. But yet he didn't trail for a single day from November 23rd onwards. So Trump was uncharacteristically strong. So again, think about where we came from. We came from COVID. We came from the Black Lives Matter protests. We came from January 6th. We came from 2 impeachments. Trump was at the bottom of his political career. And then suddenly, like a rocket ship comes out of nowhere. And again, it only took an indictment. Biden became a lot less popular. Inflation was very bad. Obviously, the pullout in Afghanistan. There was a lot of things happening in the country people weren't happy with. And suddenly now Trump is the favorite going into 2024. So really, unbelievable. Anything so far from your side? Should I keep going?
No, I think I keep throwing some of my thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, I would just say that, like, at a certain point of time, like, me personally, again, like, being outside America, like, not being involved in the political system, that not being, like, not even observing all of this, I think somewhere especially like in 2022, where we had like other problems and more urging news, like back in Russia. 2022. Yeah, I even like forgot about Trump in general. Like I didn't even consider him. Like I didn't even think whether he's gonna be the candidate for the next election round or not.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, that was what was going on, I think, behind the scenes in American politics, was everybody was wondering, is his career over? Is sort of the shadowy figure hanging over Republican American politics? Is he still there? Is he still the sort of the alpha in the Republican Party? Or is he going to either step aside, or is somebody going to take him down? Nobody could. They tried. Ron DeSantis entered the race, really pissed off Trump. Trump had a lot of negative things to say about him, viewed it as a betrayal. A lot of former Trump allies came out to run against him, and Trump crushed them all. Wasn't even close. So all that was happening in the background. But again, what helped that process, obviously, was Biden's unpopularity. So you look at everything that happened, 2021, again, Afghanistan, inflation, the conflict in Ukraine, obviously, added to the inflationary issue, added to the sense that things were chaotic around the world. And obviously that created Biden's support and at some level helped Trump as well. So that all was happening at the same time as we then got into 2024. So now we'll go into the race itself. in 2024, which I'm saying not only has the run up to this been the craziest, this is the most insane U.S. election in history, zero questions, no argument. If you
Yeah, I
ask me.
remember we talked about this. Like you had your view on this. Like why is it so crazy? Yeah, I hope you will share it.
Oh, of course we'll share it. I mean, what's all this preparation for? Dude, this is the craziest election in U.S. history, no question about it. Let's start. May 31st, 2024, the primary is over. Trump has clearly, destroyed the competition. He's clearly the candidate.
May 2024. At this point, Biden is still the
candidate.
Is still the candidate.
Yes, running behind Trump. So again, Trump is consistently winning 2 or 3 points nationally. He again had only led 4 full days in 2016 in the national polls, yet won the election. Trump is winning like substantially, 2 to 3 points consistently. Did not trail a single day since November 2023. So totally different dynamic. The Democrats are concerned. Is Biden our guy? What's going to happen? Then, May 31st, Trump is convicted on all 34 counts of illegally trying to influence the 2016 election because he paid hush money, essentially signed an NDA with, let me say this correctly, adult film star actress Stormy Daniels. So there was some, reporting that Trump may have had an encounter with this adult film star at some point. And the allegation was that he had paid her. Well, I think it's not an allegation. I think it's pretty much confirmed that he had paid her a certain sum of money in the 6 figures to not talk about it. So he was then convicted of trying to, and supposedly that was to influence the election. So he was convicted of that, illegally trying to influence the election by essentially having this hush money arrangement with the, again, adult film star actress.
How is it all connected? Like, how do you connect the dots between the adult movie star, elections, like?
Well, you gotta ask the judge and the jury. So they're saying that apparently he did it like the summer, or he did it like very, like I don't know. He did it somewhat in the election cycle. So he'd already declared his candidacy for president and then made this arrangement with her. Anyways, I agree with you. Okay. I thought it was kind of silly. It was like, come on. I mean, you're allowed to sign NDAs with people, right? So now, however, the justice system declared, okay, they thought it was trying to influence the election. Okay, fine. So 34 counts. Each of those counts carries a maximum of 4 years in prison. So he could face serious jail time, at the whenever the decision is laid down. So now that added to the dynamic of the race that he became the first former president convicted of a felony. So now he's a convicted felon. He cannot even vote in the election he's running in. This added in.
I want to highlight this phrase.
Yeah. Trump cannot vote for the election he's running in. Unbelievable. This is again never happened before. A former president who's also running for president, convicted felon, can't even vote for himself, but everybody else can. So crazy, crazy dynamic. Then, even crazier to this already insane presidential cycle, Trump and Biden agree to a debate with completely different rules than would typically be the case. One thing I want to highlight, and this really jumped out to me, it was the earliest debate in American history. So to give you,
earliest in the race.
In the race.
Mm-hmm.
So let me step back a little bit. The election is always held the second Tuesday in November.
Yep.
Always. That's in the Constitution. The political parties nominate formally. They hold a vote at their party convention. So the Republican Party meets typically in July. The Democratic Party typically meets in August. The primary race is run by the parties themselves. So the parties will have this race. People vote for the party candidate. That convention is where they're formally nominated. So each party has a different mechanism, by the way, to elect their candidates. The Republicans say, you need to win X, Y, and Z votes. The Democrats say you need to win X, Y, and Z votes, and possibly you also need support from some of the party, officials and all that. They do it on their own. So typically, you would have your debate after the conventions are done, because that's when you have the two formal candidates. Well, not this time. June 27th was the debate. The earliest debate in American history up to that point, September 21st. So already sort of a bizarre situation. On top of that, they agreed, supposedly at the Biden administration request, no audience, muting the microphones, ostensibly to make sure nobody talks over each other. You know what I mean?
Once again, no audience.
No audience.
No audience. Okay,
No
so
live audience.
it's just two people debating with themselves.
Yeah.
And
Well, with the moderators as well.
Okay, and they are not muting the microphones.
The microphones are muted.
The
So when you're
microphones are
not
muted.
talking and it's not your turn, microphones are muted, so you can't talk over each other.
Okay,
So those were the rules. Again, new rules, never been done before.
this is what we should do.
If I'm talking over you too much, which apparently I did a little bit last week, then maybe we do need to mute the mics. Wouldn't be a bad idea. So that was the backdrop. The backdrop was weird dynamic, earliest debate in American history by far, all of these new rules. What happens then? I think everybody saw it. It was the debate heard around the world where I'm now speaking purely as an American. I've watched every single one of these debates since I was probably like 8 years old. I've never seen anything like what that debate was. Did you watch it? Did you see any of the highlights?
Highlights.
You saw some of the highlights.
Yes.
Man, I seriously, at some point, I felt bad for Biden.
Yeah.
I really thought this is abusive to have him on stage.
Exactly my thoughts.
It was insane. It was like I really worried about his health in that moment. I was like, is he going to make it through this debate? It was hard to watch. As an American, regardless of your political background, it was sad. I really thought it was sad. There was one quote that he made. He was asked a question. Look, it's funny at the same time, but he was asked a question about the national debt, and we'll show the video. Actually, I want to show the video, a clip of it. He was asked about the national debt, and the conclusion to Biden's answer was, "We finally beat Medicare."
We're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Medicare is the government program to give health care to old people. We finally beat Medicare, was his concluding answer to a question about the national debt. That summarizes how rough that debate was. And I remember literally 10 minutes into the debate, I was traveling with some of my friends. We were in the U.S. actually. And I said, I think this race is over, or they need to replace Biden. There's no way that he can stay the candidate. There's no way he's going to win. So sure enough, he collapses in the polls, and a series of insane events happen. So now we get into that. The debate was June 27th. He collapses in the polls. Trump opens up a big lead, 4 points nationally, starts pulling away in all the state polls. July 13th, we have assassination attempt number 1 on Trump in Pennsylvania, where he narrowly, by a couple of millimeters, survives what would have been certainly a fatal gunshot.
At that time, Biden still was a candidate.
He was still the candidate.
Okay.
Now, he was way behind in the polls at that point, but he was still the candidate. Then, July 21st, and again, Biden was adamant, I'm not dropping out, I'm the candidate,
Yes.
X, Y, and Z. July 21st, so 8 days later, Biden formally does withdraw, endorses Kamala Harris straight away in the same announcement. So then, starting on August 2nd, Harris formally gets the support of enough of the delegates, enough of the party to support her, and then she's formally declared the candidate at the Democratic Convention August 23rd. So in a 2-month period, you've got the earliest debate in American history. You know, Biden, I don't even know how you explain it, just doesn't show up whatsoever at the debate. He's knocked out of the race. Trump knocks him out of the race in that debate. Then you've got assassination attempt number 1. Trump barely survives, a couple of millimeters away from what would have been one of the most consequential events in American political history. Then you get Biden dropping out, which, by the way, on top of that, this has been the latest a president has dropped out of a race in American history again. Never before have you had this situation where you drop out of the race after all the votes have already been done to nominate the party candidate.
Yeah.
Never happened before.
Yeah.
All of this, totally unprecedented. So then you got Kamala Harris, the vice president, who comes up. She gets all the votes. She's now the nominee. So by August 5th, so even before she formally got the nomination, she takes a national lead against Trump. She's now soaring in the polls. The comeback is on, and the Democrats look like they might be the favorites again. And she was considered the favorites in a lot of betting markets and things like that. She hits her high point in late September with a 2-point lead. She's, her campaign is all about joy and all of this stuff. And pretty much they're running on a sugar high, the Democrats. with this new nomination. Now they have a candidate who can, knows where they are and who can string a few sentences together. And obviously that's a big upgrade over the state that Biden was in, particularly in that debate.
She's way younger than Trump. Right?
Yes, she's 60. She just turned 60.
15 years difference.
Yeah, what's Trump now?
74?
I think Trump is
76?
I think he's 78.
78.
So she's got almost 20 years on him. So yeah, much younger. So that was a huge upgrade. And now the Democrats were saying, look, we got our young candidate. We've got somebody who's got energy. We've got somebody who, again, we can all get behind. So that excitement led to a big spike in the polls.
And they finally got another chance to make the first female president in American history. Right. I think it's a strong brand.
It's a strong brand, exactly. Not only that, she's obviously a person of color. So that's, again, you could have a woman of color, which I think is, again, a compelling candidacy. Again, she's much younger than Trump. So now you're running again against Trump, who this is now his third race. He's much older. So I think the dynamic on the surface looked like, okay, that might be pretty promising for the Democrats. So then they have their debate, September 10th, right? So it was the first and only Kamala Trump debate. I remember we talked about it on, I think, our second episode. I watched it. That was the famous Trump quote, "They're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the pets." I think everybody saw that.
Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
Very Trumpy.
Extremely Trumpy. They're eating the dog. I mean, it was again, classic Trump, as you said. So, look, all the polls, myself included, said Kamala clearly won that debate. She just outperformed him. No matter what you think about the issues, no matter what you think about X, Y, and Z, she came across, I think if you're going to be objective about it and remove yourself from your political leanings, she looked stronger. Yeah. And the polls...
I saw the highlights again.
And you agree?
Yeah, definitely. He looked like an old man now.
Exactly. And that was something that I thought as well. She looked much younger, more vibrant. He looked, as you said, older and a bit more disheveled. And again, polls said that 63% of people who watched it, which I think it was like 10 million people, had all said that Kamala was the winner. So that then led into her high watermark of the campaign, leading by maybe 2 points, having a lead in a lot of the swing states. I think it was the majority. Trump then says, no more debates, I'm not participating. And I think everybody was thinking, wow, this is now looking like Kamala's race to lose. She's now favored in the betting markets. Things are looking positive, all this strong momentum. And then suddenly the polls start to sort of max out for her. So the momentum starts to fade in that late September period. And Trump starts to come back. Trump is being a little bit quieter. He's not saying they're eating the cats and the dogs. He's, again, sticking to his rallies. And Kamala, I think, as she was more and more trying to get the public to know who she was, because she's a relatively unknown figure, she's made a lot of gaffes along the way. One that I want to highlight, which I think really is going to hurt her, and I think probably already is she went on The View. Are you familiar with the show The View?
No.
It's about a group of, I think, maybe 5 or 6 women. It's catered to a mainly female audience, and it's a daytime show, and they talk a lot of politics. They brought Kamala on, very friendly audience, by the way. They're very pro-Democrat. And they ask her, what would you change about the election? And she says, what would you change about the Biden administration? You're the vice president. You're part of the administration. Would you change anything? And she said, I can't think. She literally said not a thing. She would not change a single thing.
You have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years.
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Despite the fact that 2/3 of the country think that we're going in the wrong direction. That was not a good answer, obviously. Okay. She's made a lot of these mistakes where she doesn't look to be quick on her feet. She doesn't look to be clearly giving a unique brand of who are you? What are we voting for? It seems like her candidacy is falling into Hillary trap of, I'm not Trump, so vote for me. While Trump, however, has been going on a lot of podcasts, trying to target new audiences. Went to McDonald's, I think you might have seen puts on the apron.
Of course.
Smart moves. So I think this is the dynamic now we're seeing. Tomorrow he's going on Joe Rogan. So that's going to be a pretty huge
Trump's
event.
going on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, tomorrow. So we're going to see how that goes. Probably the last major event of the campaign. The election's in less than 2 weeks. So a lot of sort of moving parts here. Early voting is the last thing I want to touch on before we make the prediction. A lot of records are being set. So North Carolina, Georgia have set records for the most amount of early votes in history. In Georgia, 25% of active voters have already voted. Still 2 weeks to go before the election. So enthusiasm is clearly high. Now, typically, that would favor the Democrats, but the Republicans this year made a concerted effort to boost early voting. So rarely has the Republican Party and Republican voters done this, yet this is what we're seeing this election. So we have no idea who this favors yet. It's a really interesting dynamic. So yeah, we'll see. But that's my overview. That's the...
I want to ask you something. I know we're running out of time, but
okay,
but before we go into the prediction, I think we didn't touch one important thing when you compare these two candidates. Is we talked about this in the previous episodes, but still, like if I look at the strong figures, public figures who support each of the candidates, like I cannot ignore it. Like you have Obama on the one side openly supporting Harris, like doing some, like bold moves, like dancing with Eminem on stage and all of this. I saw that, like that was really cool.
I got to admit, it was very cool.
And then on the other hand, you have the richest man on the earth. So, like I know we talked about this, like these are more of the spikes rather than the like trend changers and trend changing things, but still. Like when you look at this different like distribution of the forces supporting each other candidates, what do you think, like who looks stronger?
It's a really good question. We did touch on this in one of our episodes. I stand by what I said. I really don't think it matters. Now, again, some of those viral moments, I got to admit, I thought Obama and Eminem is pretty cool.
That was pretty cool.
I mean, Eminem's just like an objectively pretty cool guy. Obama's objectively pretty cool guy. It was cool. Fine.
Sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, vomit on my sweater already, mom's spaghetti. I'm nervous, but on the surface I look calm and ready to drop bombs, but I keep on forgetting.
I just don't think it matters. At the end of the day, you're voting for president. It's not a popularity contest. So,
isn't it?
Well, look, if you're worried about your pocketbook, you're worried about immigration, you're worried about your job, are you going to care that Eminem and Obama were rapping on stage? I doubt it. If you look at 2016, famously Hillary's last rally or last campaign event had like all the major stars, Beyonce, Jay-Z, I don't know who else was there, but like everybody had aligned. Nobody was supporting Trump from that sort of class of folks. So
I wanted to make this joke that everybody who attended P. Diddy's party.
Exactly. The P. Diddy folks. They were all there supporting Hillary, apparently, and exactly.
We will cut it if it's inappropriate.
Exactly. Maybe P. Diddy himself was there. Maybe that's what cost the election. I have no idea. But exactly. So everybody had coalesced around them. Didn't matter. I don't think these celebrity endorsements matter.